Hello students, I am Sai Baba here. So in the previous class, I have shown you the questions in the assignment in rotational motion. I have shown you the questions numbering from 61 to 90. I have also shown you the answers for all these questions. So in this class, I am going to start the discussion, the solution, about the solutions of these questions. So I am going to discuss the solutions for the questions in the assignment in rotational motion starting from question number 61 onwards. Come on, look at the screen for question number 61. Average torque on a projectile of mass m, initial speed u, and angle of projection theta between the initial and final position p and q, as shown in the figure about the point of projection is. So look at the solution here in the general way. So if a body is given some initial velocity u bar at an angle theta above the horizontal, so that it moves only under influence of gravity after projection in a vertical plane, then we can call the body as the projectile. So at any particular instant, the instantaneous external force on the projectile is the force of gravity, or its weight mg, which acts vertically downwards. We choose the point of projection as origin of the coordinate system and the horizontal direction parallel to the horizontal velocity of the projectile as x-axis. Then the perpendicular distance between the line of action of the force of gravity, the force mg, and the origin, that is the point of projection, at any instant is equal to the magnitude of the horizontal displacement of the projectile. Therefore, magnitude of instantaneous torque on the projectile at time t after projection, when the projectile moves under influence of gravity, can be written as F into R perpendicular. From basic definition, the moment of a force F bar with respect to an origin, a fixed coordinate system is given by tau bar equal to R bar cross F bar, where R bar is the position vector of the point of application of the force with respect to the origin of the coordinate system. So magnitude of the torque can be written as F into R perpendicular, as discussed in the past, where F is the magnitude of the force and R per subscript perpendicular represents the perpendicular distance between the origin and line of action of the force mg. Choose the point of projection as the origin. So here F can be taken as mg and R perpendicular equal to x. So magnitude of instantaneous torque on the projectile at any instant equal to mgx. The horizontal displacement of the projectile in time t after projection can be written as x equal to u cos theta into t. I think I have discussed similar problem earlier in the theory part before discussion about the assignment. So magnitude of the instantaneous torque is proportional to the time of motion under influence of gravity, because the horizontal velocity of projectile remains constant. Therefore, the average torque can be taken as the average of initial and final positions of the projectile. At the initial position P, x is 0, the magnitude of the instantaneous torque is 0. At the position Q, x equal to the horizontal range of the projectile, which are denoted by R, which you can write as u square sine 2 theta by g. So magnitude of the torque acting on the projectile at the position Q I mean instantaneous torque. Using this relation, mg into r, where r is the horizontal range of projectile, which you can write it as u square sine 2 theta by g. So you get mu square sine 2 theta. So magnitude of the average value of the torque on the projectile during motion under gravity during the time of flight is equal to magnitude of the torque at the position P plus magnitude of the torque at the position P. So that is 0 plus mu square sine 2 theta whole divided by 2. Or you can write half of mu square into sine 2 theta. So that will be the answer. Same model problem was given in the past MSET exam in 2004, I think, in MSET engineering. Those who want to copy the solution of the problem, they can take a pause and copy the solution of the problem. So for question number 61, which I have just discussed, the first option will be the answer. Then see the question number 62. A child is standing with folded hands at the center of a platform, rotating about its central axis. The kinetic energy of the system is K. The child now stretches his arm so that the moment of inertia of system is doubles. The kinetic energy system now is. Now we consider the child as one system. So the external forces which act on the child are the gravitational force mg, and second force is a normal reaction force by the platform. And both these forces act in the vertical direction parallel to the vertical axis, passing through the center of the platform. And the child is standing near the center of the platform. That means the line of action of the weight mg of the child, and also the line of action of normal reaction force on the child. And these two forces will be in the vertical direction. They coincide with the axis of rotation or parallel to the axis of rotation. Therefore, moment, as I discussed in the past, if a force acts at a point on the axis of rotation, or if a force acts parallel to the axis of rotation, then moment of that force along the axis of rotation will be 0. That means torque on the child due to the gravitational force about the axis of rotation is 0. The torque due to the normal force is also 0. So net external torque on the child about the vertical axis can be taken to be 0. Therefore, angular momentum of the child about the vertical axis passing through the center of platform can be assumed to be constant. So angular momentum of a rotating body can witness product of its moment of inertia and angular velocity of rotation. So you can write I dash omega dash equal to I into omega. So I is the moment of inertia in the first case, and omega is the initial angular speed of rotation about the vertical axis. I dash is a new value of the moment of inertia of the child when the child stretches his arms, and omega dash is a new angular speed of rotation. So you can write omega dash equal to I omega by I dash. Now it is given that moment of inertia is doubled. That means you can substitute I dash equal to 2I. So you get omega dash equal to omega by 2. So you get omega dash equal to omega by 2. So let K dash denote the new kinetic energy of rotation. Let K denote the initial kinetic energy of rotation. The initial kinetic energy of rotation can write half I omega square. The new kinetic energy of the system we can write half I dash into omega dash square. That is I dash by I into omega dash by omega whole square. We can substitute I dash equal to 2I here and omega dash equal to omega by 2. So you get 2 into 1 by 4 or k dash by k, you get 1 by 2. So r k dash equal to k by 2. That will be the answer. If you want to copy the solution of the problem, you can take a pause and copy the solution of the problem. There is an alternate method also for the same problem. The alternate method is you can directly use the relation between rotational kinetic energy and angular momentum. The kinetic energy system we can write L square by 2I. I mean kinetic energy of body in rotational motion about a fixed axis can be written as L square by 2I, where L is the angular momentum, I is the moment of inertia. Here angular momentum L is constant. Therefore kinetic energy in the present example is inversely related to moment of inertia. So therefore k dash by k can write L square by 2I dash divided by L square by 2I or I by I dash. It is given that I dash is 2I. So you get the same conclusion. K dash by k equal 1 by 2 or k dash equal to k by 2. But this alternate method should not be used for the board exams. It can be used only for multiple choice type question papers. In case we are given a similar problem board exam, you have to solve the problem by the previous method. So for question number 62, which I just discussed, the second option will be the answer. Then you see the next question, 63. 3 thin rods, each of length L and mass M, are placed along X, Y, and Z axis in such a way that one end of each rod is at the origin. The moment of inertial system over Z axis is. So moment of inertial system 3 rods is equal to sum of the moments of inertia of the individual rods. So one of the rods, I call it as 1, is kept along x-axis. The second rod, I call it as 2, kept along y-axis. The third rod, 3, is kept along z-axis. The 3 rods are mutually, length of the 3 rods are mutually perpendicular to each other. You have to find the moment of inertia of the system about z-axis. So for the first rod, the z-axis is perpendicular to its length and passing through one of the ends. Even for second rod, whose length is along y-axis, the z-axis is perpendicular to its length and passing through one of the ends. For third rod, the length lies along the axis. So the entire mass of the third rod can be assumed to be concentrated along the z-axis. Therefore, for various particles, that is sigma mr square, that will be 0 for the third rod, because all the particles of the third rod lie on the axis. So moment of inertia of the third rod along the axis 0, because distance of each particle of the third rod from the axis can axis is taken as 0. So moment of inertia second rod about the axis same as the moment of inertia first rod. As discussed in theory part, moment of inertia of uniform rod of mass m and length L about the axis passing to one of the ends and perpendicular to its length is given by ml square by 3, where L is the length of the rod. So total moment of inertia system of the three rods, you can write I1 plus I2 plus I3. You can substitute I1 equal to ml square by 3. I2 is also equal to ml square by 3. I3 is 0. So you get the answer as 2 ml square by 3. So for question number 63, second option is answer. Then look at the question number 64. The square lamina lies in the xy plane, and z axis is passing through center and perpendicular to the plane of the lamina. I1, I2, I3, I4 are moments of inertia of lamina about axis shown. The moment of inertia of lamina about z axis is. So in this case, the z axis is perpendicular to the plane of the lamina and passing through center of the lamina. According to the perpendicular axis, please read the statement of the perpendicular axis theorem once again from your notes. According to the perpendicular axis theorem, the moment of inertia of a plane body or plane lamina about an axis perpendicular to the plane of the body will be equal to sum of its moments of inertia about any two mutually perpendicular axes in the plane of the body intersecting on the first axis. That means from perpendicular axis theorem, you can say that moment of inertia of the square lamina about the z axis, which is perpendicular plane of the square lamina and passing through the center of the plane lamina, is equal to sum of its moments of inertia about any two mutually perpendicular lines or axes in the plane of the body and intersecting on the first axis. You can observe that the two diagonals of the square are perpendicular to each other and they intersect at center of the square. That means they intersect the z axis at center of square. So moment of inertia about one of the diagonals is denoted by I3. Moment of inertia about the other diagonal denoted by I4. Therefore, IZ can be written as I3 plus I4 because these two axes, which are denoted by I3 and I4, moment of inertia about this axis I3, moment of inertia about this axis I4. These two axes are perpendicular to each other and they lie in the plane of the lamina and they intersect on the z axis at center of the lamina. And you cannot write IZ equal to I2 plus I1. The reason is the two axes which are put across, that is moment of inertia along this first axis denoted by I1 and moment of inertia about second axis denoted by I2. They are not intersecting the z axis at center of the lamina. They are intersecting at one of corners. So you cannot write IZ equal to I1 plus I2. So therefore this you cannot write here this way. The same way, now see, you can then look at the options that are given. The axis is called I3 plus I4 will be the correct option. That is, third option is answer. Either cannot be equal to I1 plus I2 because the two axes, first and second axis, don't intersect with the axis center of the lamina. And either cannot be written as I1 plus I4 for same reason because first and fourth axis don't intersect at center of the lamina. This equation for perpendicular axis theorem is applicable only when the two axes, the moments of inertia about the two axes on the right hand side of the equation, or lie in the plane of the body intersect on the first axis, z axis, at center of the lamina. So third option is answer. See the question number 65. A wheel of radius 20 centimeter has forces applied to it as shown in the figure. The net torque produced by the force is 8 Newton at A, 4 Newton at B, 9 Newton at C, and 6 Newton at D. The angles indicated is. So I denote the radius of the wheel by capital R. The center of the wheel as origin of the coordinate system. I denote the magnitude of the force applied at the first end A by F1. Magnitude of the force applied second end B by F2. Magnitude of the force applied third end C by F3. Magnitude of the force applied the fourth end D by F4. Magnitude of the torque or moment of a force as explained in the past can be written RF sin theta in general. The theta is the angle between R bar and F bar. That means if a force F bar acts at a point with position vector R bar with respect to the origin O of the fixed coordinate system, then moment of the force F bar with respect to the origin O given by RF sin theta, where theta is the angle between R bar and F bar. Or you can also write this formula as R into F perpendicular. The F perpendicular is the component of the force which acts perpendicular to the position vector R bar of the point at which the force is applied. Or you can write F into R perpendicular. That is, magnitude of the torque can be written as product of the magnitude of the force and perpendicular distance between the line of action of the force from the origin O. Coming to the first force here, the first force F1 bar can resolve into rectangular components along the radius AO and perpendicular to the radius AO. So here, the position vector of the point at which the force is applied is equal to OA bar, which is directed toward left side. This F bar is directed to the right side. So this torque tries to rotate the body in what direction? You can try to find out whether it is clockwise or anti-clockwise. That means if you assume that second, third, fourth force are not acting, only the first force F1 bar is applied on the wheel, then you can observe that it tends to rotate it in the clockwise sense. Can resolve F1 bar into rectangular components along the position vector of the point A, that is along the radius AO and perpendicular to the radius OA. OA bar is the position vector of the point A at which the first force F1 bar is applied. So, you can resolve F1 into components. The component F1 cos 30 degrees acts along the radius AO. The component F1 sin 30 degrees acts perpendicular to the position vector OA bar of the point A at which the first force is applied. So using this formula, magnitude of the first torque applied at the point A, magnitude of the moment of the first force applied at the point A, or torque due to the first force at A, can be written as length of the line OA, that is equal to radius of the wheel, into F1 sin 30 degrees. That means F perpendicular, you can take it as for the first force. That is the component of the first force which acts perpendicular to the position vector of the point E with respect to center of the wheel as origin, is equal to F1 sin 30 degrees. So R is equal to 20 centimeters, means 0.2 meters. F1 is 8 Newton, sin 30 degrees is 1/2. So this magnitude of the first torque you get 0.8 Newton meter, it tends to rotate in the clockwise sense. The second torque, the moment of second force F2 bar can be found by using this equation. The angle theta between R bar, R2 bar and F2 bar. That is moment of second force F2 bar. You can write tau 2 bar equal to R2 bar cross F2 bar. R2 bar is the position vector of the point B with respect to center of the wheel as origin at which the force is applied. So the angle between R2 bar and F2 bar is 90 degrees. That is magnitude of the torque using this first formula, RF sin theta, magnitude of torque due to second force or magnitude of the moment of second force is equal to mod of R2 bar or equal to mod of OB bar, that is equal to radius R of the wheel, R into F2 into sine 90 degrees. The radius R of the wheel is 0.2 meter, F2 is given to 4 Newton, sine 90 degrees is 1. So that is 0.8 Newton meter. If you assume that only the second force F2 bar is applied, but the other forces are not acting, in that case, in what direction the wheel rotates, clockwise or anti-clockwise? That means if you consider the situation when F2 bar, the second force F2 bar alone is applied, in the absence of other three forces, then the wheel rotates in anti-clockwise. That means the second torque tends to rotate the wheel in the anti-clockwise sense. Even the third force F3 bar acts perpendicular to the position vector of the point C. So moment of third force F3 bar So moment of the third force F3 bar can write R3 bar cross F3 bar. So R3 bar is equal to OC bar. So angle between R3 bar and F3 bar is 90 degrees. So magnitude third torque is equal to R into F3 to sine 90 degrees. So R equal to 0.2 meter. That is the radius of the wheel. Magnitude third force is 9 Newton. Sine 90 degrees is 1. So that is 1.8 Newton meter. Try to observe in what direction this force tends to rotate the wheel. This force tends to rotate the wheel in the clockwise sense. That means assume that only third force acts, but other forces are not acting. Then the wheel rotates in the clockwise sense. The line of action of third force F4 bar passes through the center of the wheel. So the moment of the force F4 bar, R4 bar cross F4 bar. R4 bar is OD bar. OD bar and F4 bar act in opposite direction. As I discussed already in the past, the line of action of a force passes through the origin O, about which the moment of the force is calculated. So in general, if the line of action of the force passes through the point O which lies on the axis of rotation, then moment of the force will be 0. So magnitude of the fourth torque or magnitude of the moment of the fourth force about O will be 0. So if you give positive sign for torque in the clockwise sense, you have to give negative sign for the torque in the anti-clockwise sense. So magnitude of the net torque, we are going to magnitude of the first torque which in the clockwise sense minus magnitude of the second torque which in anti-clockwise sense plus magnitude of third torque, which is a clockwise. Magnitude of fourth torque is 0. So you get 0.8 minus 0.8 plus 1.8 plus 0 Newton meter. So you get the answer as 1.8 Newton meter. We got positive sign, means clockwise. That will be the answer. This problem was originally given one of the previous entrance exams in AFMC, that means Armed Forces Medical College entrance in Pune. So those who want to copy the solution of the problem, they can take a pause and copy the solution of the problem. So for question number 65, which I just discussed now, second option will be the answer. Look at the next question, question number 66. A uniform cube of side A and mass M rests on a rough horizontal table. A horizontal force F is applied normal to one of the faces at the point that is directly above the center of the face at a height 3a by 4 above the base. The minimum value of F for which the cube begins to tip about an edge is. Assume that the cube does not slide. So we choose the edge of the cube in contact with the table as origin, because the cube will begin to turn or overturn about the point O when F is greater than a particular value. The weight mg acts vertically downwards. So perpendicular distance between the line of action of the weight mg. Here length of each edge of the cube is a. So perpendicular distance between the line of action of the weight mg from the tip O, from the edge O of the cube, will be equal to a by 2. So when the cube is about to, that means about to tip, that means about to turn, about at this point O, then normal reaction force by the table on the cube acts at the point O in the vertical direction. So when the cube is about to turn or tilt about the point O without sliding along the surface of table, then normal reaction force on the cube by the table acts at the point O. So moment of this normal reaction force about O becomes 0. The moment of the force F applied at this distance 3a by 4 tries to turn the cube in a clockwise sense about O. So moment of the force mg or torque acting on the cube due to the weight gravitational force mg tries to turn the cube in the anti-clockwise sense about O. So therefore, the cube can tip about the point O, that is, the cube can turn about the point O without sliding along surface of the table. The magnitude of the force, magnitude of the moment of the force F, that can be F into 3a by 4. That means we are taking moments of the forces about the point O, about the edge of the cube in contact with the table. Then it is about to overturn. The magnitude of the torque or moment of the force F about this point O near the edge of the cube. about which it tends to rotate. So O is the center of the face. I mean, O is the point on the face of the cube directly below this, the point of application of the force F. So magnitude of the torque or moment of the force F about O, you can write F into 3A by 4. If that is more than the magnitude of the torque or moment of the force mg about O, then it can overturn. Should be more or at least equal to this value. So F need to be more than mga by 2 into 4 by 3a, or F has to be greater than 2 mg by 3. So minimum value of this force needed to be applied on the cube so that the cube will overturn along that without sliding is 2 mg by 3. It will not slide along the floor. Of course, for the question I have given, 2 mg by 3 is answer. But sometimes you may have to find the relation for coefficient of friction. That means block does not slide along the floor if the magnitude of the horizontal force applied is less than the limiting value of friction. Limiting friction is F equal less than nu into n. Normal reaction can take it as mg. That means 2 mg by 3 less than F less than mg. In case you are asked what is the condition for coefficient of friction, that means 2 by 3 less than nu, or nu must be greater than 2 by 3 for this. In case you are asked what is the minimum value of coefficient of friction required, then it will be 2 by 3. Of course, for the question I had given, answer will be 2 mg by 3. This is the additional discussion beyond not required to answer the given question. But sometimes same situation can be given a different question to find the minimum value of coefficient of friction required for same condition. So if you want to copy this working, you can take a pause and copy the working. So for question number 66, which I have just discussed, first option is answer. Next is the question number 67. A smooth uniform rod of length L and mass m has two identical beads of negligible size, each of mass small m, which can slide freely along the rod. Initially, the two beads are at the center of the rod and the system is rotating with angular velocity omega naught about an axis perpendicular to the rod and passing through the midpoint of the rod. There are no external forces. When the beads reach the ends of the rod, angular velocity system is. So given that no external forces are acting on the system, so no external torques are acting on the system of the two beads and the rod, we can assume angular momentum system of the rod and the two beads is constant about the axis of rotation. So initially the two beads are near the center of the rod and the rod is rotating with an angular velocity omega naught. You're asked to find the angular speed of rotation at the instant when the two beads reach the end of the two ends of the rod. So when the two beads reach the two ends of the rod, distance of each bead from the center of the rod, I mean from the axis, becomes equal to half of the length of the rod. So applying conservation of angular momentum, Final angle on the system of the two beads and the rod about the axis of rotation can be equated to initial angle on the system of the two beads and the rod. So initial angular moment of system, we can write initial moment of inertia of the system into initial angular speed omega naught. Final angular moment of system, we can witness final moment of inertia of system into final angular speed, which are denoted by omega. Final angular moment of inertia of system is equal to moment of inertia of the rod plus moment of inertia of the two beads. So initial angular momentum of system can be done product of initial value of moment of inertia of system, that is equal to moment of inertia of the rod plus initial value of the moment of inertia of the beads. So moment of inertia of the beads in the second case, that is in the final condition. Sum of the moments of inertia of the two beads. The mass of each bead is denoted by small n. So when the two beads reach the ends of the rod, the distance of each bead from the axis will be equal to L by 2. So total moment of inertia system of the two beads will be ml square by 2. But initially, each bead is at near the center of the rod lying on that. That means initial values of R1 and R2 is 0. That means initial moment of inertia of the two beads about the vertical axis passing the center of the rod can be taken as 0. Final value of the moment of inertia of the two beads, we can be taken ml square by 2. Moment of inertia of the rod about the axis passing through center of the rod perpendicular length is given by ml square by 12. So moment of inertia of the rod doesn't change in the present example, that you can write capital M into L square by 12, where capital M is the mass of the rod. So you can take L square by L square, you can take common outside. Try to simplify it yourself. Those who want to copy the solution of the problem, they can take a pause and start writing the solution of the problem. So you can cancel L square by 12, both the sides. So you get omega equal to M omega naught by capital M plus 6 into small m. That's the answer. Those who want to copy the solution, please take a pause and finish writing the solution. So for question number 67, which I have just discussed now, second option will be the answer. Look at the question number 68. This question number 68 comes under one of the special cases I have discussed in the past in the perpendicular axis theorem. The special case which I discussed, perpendicular axis theorem, is, as discussed, that moment of inertia of a uniform square plate about any axis in the plane of the square plate and passing through the center of the square plate will be the same. That will be equal to half of the moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry. So you can look at this question 68 again. Let I be the moment of inertia Uniform square plate about an axis AB that passes through its center and parallel to of its sides. CD is a line in the plane of the plate and passes through the center of the plate and makes an angle theta with AB. The moment of inertia of the plate about the axis CD is equal to. Let us suppose the plate lies in the XY plane. So the axis AB passes through the center of the plate O parallel to of its sides. Its moment of inertia is I. Moment of inertia about this line A dash O B dash, which is perpendicular to AOB, which lies in the plane of square plate, will be same as the moment of inertia about the line AOB by symmetry, because the line A dash O B dash is also perpendicular to opposite edges or parallel to two sides and passes through the midpoints of the two opposite sides and passing through the center. Therefore, moment of inertia about A dash B dash is also equal to I. From perpendicular axis theorem, moment of inertia about central axis means about the axis of symmetry which is perpendicular to the plane of the square plate and passing through center of the plate. That means the moment of inertia about the axis perpendicular plane of the diagram and passing through center O will be equal to I AB plus I A dash B dash. That is I plus I or 2I. The same way here, the line CD is in the plane of the plate and that passes center of the plate makes an angle theta with AB like this. So you can draw a line perpendicular to the line COD. This line makes same angle theta that is C dash O D dash. Is the line perpendicular to the line CD, which also passes the center of the plate and perpendicular it lies in the plane of the plate. So moment of inertia about C dash D dash plus moment of inertia about CD from perpendicular axis theorem. These two axes CD and C dash D dash lie in the plane of the plate and they are perpendicular to each other and they intersect on central axis of symmetry at center of the plate. That will be also equal to IZ. So by symmetry these two are equal. That means 2 times moment of inertia about the line CD will be equal to moment of inertia about the axis, which you can write 2I. So moment of inertia about the line CD is equal to I. In general, the conclusion which I discussed in the past with explanation can be applied here.